All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of CE 498, our senior design course. As I've indicated to you in the past, we have a special series of guests today. The people that are sitting here before you went through this course some years ago, senior design. We brought them back to campus after years of practicing on their career tracks. They've done exceptionally well in what they've been endeavoring to do, and so they're here to be honored, and we wanted them to come and we wanted you to meet them so you can hear what their career track has been and how they got where they are, and what some of their secrets to success were. So let me introduce these folks to you. First of all, on your left down here is Mike Wongkaew. Mike is a PE and also an SC, a structural engineering licensure. He got his BSCE here in 1996, his master's in 97, and then his PhD in the year 2000. He is the senior vice president with AECOM out of Seattle, Washington, and he's also known as America's tunnel practice leader. So he builds tunnels. Okay. Sitting next to Mike is Nicole Speece Laiho. She received her BE degree and then her BSCE degree here in 1997. She's a PE. She's a master's in 1999. She's managing partner and chief operating officer with Peak Engineering in Lakewood, Colorado. She's responsible for business relationships with developers and contractors, architects throughout the state of Colorado and across the United States. Next to Nicole is Lance Hansen. Hansen got his BS with us in 1988. From West Point, West Point grad, 88. His master's Purdue in 95, his PhD in 2002. And he's manager R&D, design, build, test, deploy, exploratory systems technology with the Sandia Labs National Laboratory in Livermore, California. Okay, next to Lance is Amy Slaughter. She has a BA degree in 1993, a BSCE in 97. She's the Chief Executive Officer of the Heritage Group out of Indianapolis. And the Heritage Group is composed of more than 5,000 employees and 30 business units. Next to Amy is John Davis. John Davis, BSCE with us in 82. His master's in 87. He's a licensed professional engineer, and he's president of the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and he's also the city traffic engineer for Des Moines, Iowa. And he's been an active member of the Institute of Traffic Engineers since he began his transportation career more than 35 years ago. And next to John is J. David Frost. David has a BA degree, a BAI, Technical French, Mathematics, Civil Engineering, Trinity College, Dublin, Ireland. His master's in 86 with us, PhD in 89, and he's a licensed professional engineer in the United States, of course, and in Canada. He's the Elizabeth and Bill Higginbotham Professor, Regents Entrepreneurial Professor, School of Civil Environmental Engineering, and affiliated with the School of Computational Science and Engineering at the Georgia Institute of Technology. So these are our Civil Engineering Alumni Achievement Award honorees that we're bringing back to campus today. We'll finish up the day today with a celebration in the North Ballroom of the Purdue Memorial Union. So what we're going to do this morning, I'm going to have each of these people tell you something about themselves and how they got to where they are now, what their secrets to success were. So, who would like to go first? Michael, since you're right here, you got the microphone. There you go. Okay, good.
Good morning. I hope everyone can hear. It's a pleasure for me to be back. Thinking back when I was in your class, It was the first time I worked through the night to finish the project. Subsequently, I learned how to manage time better, how to manage project, how to work collaboratively to deliver excellent projects to the client. Please allow me to share some of the journey that I took. And when you hear from the panelists here, you will hear different stories. But I hope each of us have different stories, and you choose what might resonate and align with your plans, or you will invent your own and find your path to success. My journey in civil engineering began here in '96, as Professor Jacko mentioned. And then I pursued the master's degree and doctoral degree, where Purdue education provided solid foundation for my career. I also took the opportunity to work while I was here as teaching assistant for Professor Sutton and the late Professor Al Cheffel in the CE 584 Foundation Engineering course. And it's that interdisciplinary background, geotechnical and structural, that led me to the career in tunneling. But it wasn't planned. I started out as a bridge engineer in Bloomington, Indiana, working for a firm called AECON. We worked on county bridges, and it was a rewarding career. Every 2 months we designed a project, and in the next 6 months you see them get built. And it was rewarding. You serve the public, you see things get built. I took a challenge to move out to the West Coast and join a team in Portland, where we were designing a major sewage tunnel in downtown Portland. Again, serving the public, prevent pollution from the waterway. Subsequently, increasing responsibility come that way because we learn new things and apply and take those lessons learned to the new projects. I got to design subway projects in Sydney, Australia, Toronto, Canada, Los Angeles, and Seattle. One of the proudest moments that I worked on was to help State Department of Transportation with the management of the world's largest bore tunnel project under downtown Seattle, under all those high rises, to provide highway connection that is safer and seismically safe for the public. In my current role as a Senior Vice President for AECOM, I lead the tunnel practice for Americas. I have the responsibilities and also a proud privilege to work alongside colleagues to grow tunnel business and also retain and attract talents like yourself so that we can deliver tunnel projects for the clients in North America and South America. So that's the geographical coverage that I had. I am also involved quite heavily in the industry activities. I represent the United States at International Tunneling Association in the working group for shaft design construction. And I'm a member of BSCE Underground Engineering and Construction Committee. Outside work, I also volunteer. I mentor high school students through ACE mentoring program to help the high school kids, students, understand and explore career paths in construction, architecture, and engineering. So looking back, there are no secrets, but I can summarize my key to my journey in 4 topics. 1, strong, solid education. Take advantage of where you are, why you are here. 2nd, explore all the opportunities that you can gain practical experience that will shape and deepen your understanding of this field. 3rdly, open to new challenges, open to new opportunities. My decision to move west and embark on tunneling journey earned me rewarding career opportunities and significant projects that I would never have imagined. And lastly, continue to embrace learning opportunities. The learning doesn't end here. Part of Purdue education is also teaching us how to learn, how to continue to learn. And all these principles will have served me well, and I trust that you will take some of these as you embark on your own journey. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Here, excellent, good, thank you. All right, next, here you go, Nicole. There you go, okay.
Well, I have a dirty little secret. I didn't want to go to Purdue. I grew up in Muncie, Indiana, which is about 2 hours east of here. My parents met at Purdue. My aunt went to Purdue. My brother went to Purdue. I didn't want to go to Purdue. I wanted to go to Stanford. And back in those days, you had to get a paper application packet. So I applied for it. I had it sent to me. And I started flipping through it. And I got to the page about cost. And I suddenly realized that I could go to Purdue for all 4 years for what 1 year at Stanford would cost me. It was pretty easy math. So I came to Purdue, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made. I participated in the co-op program while I was here, and I got 2 years of real-world experience working for a structural consulting firm down in Noblesville, Indianapolis. My specialty was structural engineering, so I wanted to design buildings, and that's what I currently do. I got my master's in '99, and then once I finished, then I was going to get out of Indiana. So I interviewed all over the country, and I ended up landing a job in Denver, Colorado, for a structural engineering firm that did high-end projects. So they were the engineer of record for the Denver International Airport Terminal. They also did the Westin Hotel that's out there, if you guys have seen that. Kind of looks like a mustache, if you've ever seen it. When I got there, they had just finished up the Denver Aquarium. I did a lot of high-profile projects while I was there. I worked on, in addition to the international airport out there, I worked on ski resorts up in Breckenridge, Colorado. I did lots of really cool, interesting projects, and I hated every minute of it. That was well before the work-life balance motion and toxic work environments were even a thing. But I can look back at it and know that I was involved in a very toxic work environment. So the economic downturn that came about after September 11 hit Denver about a year later, and so I was laid off along with a bunch of other employees from the company. And I started to think, maybe this isn't for me. It was such a bad experience, maybe this isn't for me. I actually was going to move back home to Indiana, and I had a potential job. Came back for the interview, and they'd given the position away. So I drove back to Colorado with my tail between my legs and started looking through the want ads again, because that's how we found jobs back then. And at the last minute, there was this very, very vague ad that said, contract work for a no-name structural engineering firm in Lakewood, Colorado. I don't know about you, but today, if I saw that, I'd think it was a spam, right? And a scam. I would never apply for that, but I did. And it turned out to be Peak Engineering, and I've been there for 22 years now, and I'm a 45% owner of the company now. So it was a pretty good opportunity for contract work. I am the Chief Operating Officer at Peak Engineering now. Like I said, I've been there for 22 years. I still do daily production. I still design buildings. I get to drive down I-70 and go, that's my building, that's my building, that's my building. And that's actually pretty cool. I'm in charge of our business development, our marketing. I do all of our social media. I'm kind of the face of the company. I go to the conferences. I actually just revamped our entire marketing brochure before we got here. That was my big push last week. I manage about 12 employees right now. We've been as big as 20 before. We do a lot of commercial buildings, commercial real estate. We have a couple of divisions. I run our warehouse division. I've become kind of an expert in tilt-up concrete design. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but you actually build the walls on the floor and you tilt them into place. So I'm very active with the Tilt-Up Concrete Association, and I've been named to their top 50 influencers in the world for the last 7 years. I also mentor. I've done ACE before. I've done a couple other high school programs. I currently mentor for the Tilt-Up Concrete Association, so I'm mentoring other adults. And I can tell you that coming from Purdue, as Mike said, your foundation, your educational foundation is second to none. I interview and hire employees all the time, and you guys are so far ahead of all the competition out there with the education that you're getting here. So understand that and know that you have a great value and that you're a step above everyone else. So.
All right, very good. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you. As you point out, Nicole, you drive down the street and you say, that's my building, that's my building. So I tell these students this Francis Scott Key Bridge. Someday, 20 years from now, you're going to be on vacation with your 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 kids, and you'll drive across I-695 in Baltimore, and you'll say, I had a part in this bridge years ago. Same kind of very special. All right, Lance Hansen is next. Lance, of course, is a graduate of the Military Academy, West Point, so we're really happy to have him here with us as well. Okay.
I'm old, I have to have notes. You're going to find today that the diversity of experience of this group is really broad, geographically, internationally, academically, and I challenge you to kind of see yourself somewhere in this group and resonate and figure out a way to resonate with some part of that, because that will help you perhaps in the future when you come to a pivotal decision. Right now I'm part of Pantex. Pantex is a plant, a manufacturing plant in Amarillo, Texas. They're responsible for the assembly and disassembly of the nation's nuclear weapon stockpile. So it's significant in terms of its responsibilities to our national security infrastructure, and quite frankly to the ability of our national government to sustain global security. I share that up front because I chose a career and a life of service to try and make a difference for things that are bigger. It comes from my military academy origination, and I've continued that throughout my life. I want to take a side note right now and ask the 3 folks I see in uniform, our ROTC, local ROTC, Army, or Air Force, or Navy, or Army? Air Force, please stand. So I do that having served in uniform for 20 years, part of that active duty, part of that reserves. Freedom's not free, and the global security that exists today exists because of young adults who will become mature and older adults and do important things. So please remember that as you see them on campus. My journey is a little bit different, a little unusual. I'll just say my journey is a life of opportunity. Opportunity presented and opportunity pursued. And so one of the things I'll say to you at the end, or maybe I'll say it now, is always be open to opportunity. If you think you know exactly what you're going to be doing, and even next year, you know, nobody has that crystal ball. Be open to the opportunity and take advantage of them as when they come. I grew up in a little town of Luck, Wisconsin, where athletics and academics enabled me to differentiate myself just a little bit, to the point where I was selected to the military academy. That was an interesting time. Most of you don't remember Ronald Reagan, but he was working to improve the standing of the United States, and he said bring down the wall, and the Cold War ended, and then suddenly everything shifted to the Middle East. I ended up going to war, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and I call that out only because when we came back, we were heroes. The folks who came back from the war before were not. And I always remember that. Our Vietnam veterans did not come back as heroes.
That's right.
And so the nation decided to make a fundamental shift. And I think it's been a good one ever since. So anytime you get an opportunity to thank a veteran of any era, do so. Any of you who get the opportunity to serve, please do. The nation needs service from our citizens. So after leaving active duty, I came to Purdue. Quite honestly, did not even know Purdue existed. I drove across the Wabash River and it said, welcome to Purdue University. I turned to my wife and I said, did you know there's a university here? Because northern Wisconsin, we didn't talk about those things in the little towns, agricultural towns. I came here, I retooled. I started in environmental engineering. I was going to go as an environmental engineer and do environmental compliance and stewardship litigation. So I was going to get a master's and then go to law school. That was my plan. And no plan survives first contact. By the time I finished my master's, because I was not the brightest in the book, but I work hard. I did my master's with Dr. Jacko. And it took me so long to finish that I'd done enough coursework to enter a PhD program. And Ron Lukash said, don't go lateral, go up. So I scurried around and found a committee and And then my wife was pregnant with our second child, and she said, time to get a job. So I left Purdue to join the workforce, and I joined the Army because of my uniform background as a research environmental engineer at the Waterways Experiment Station in Vicksburg, Mississippi. And that launched my civilian career in research and development. But I did not stay an environmental engineer very long. I did some pretty cool projects for the Ogallala Aquifer. I did some cool projects at Fort Drum, New York. Remediation, mostly biological or chemical remediation of contaminants in soil and groundwater. Those are still important things. We still have contamination in the country that needs to be managed or maintained. But what I learned is that I was a good engineer because I could envision and problem solve, not the best engineer at design. And I thought to myself, if I can problem solve for myself and increase my own efficiency 2 or 3%, 5%, 10%, if I could do that for a team and suddenly increase the efficiency of a team, and then a larger group, next thing you know, you're having, we call them FTE, full-time employees, levels of impact by reducing the opportunity costs associated with inefficiency and challenges. So I opted to go into management fairly early in my career, and that was successful for me. I was able to parlay that into the next opportunity. Leadership will look upon you as you make progress in your career. They will say, there's somebody who has an aptitude to accomplish something. Kind of know what that something is for yourself. I moved through Army R&D community and retired as a lab director for the Army in 2021. The Department of Energy knocked on the door, another opportunity I did not pursue, and they said, please come help us with another Army project. So the theme there is be open to opportunity. Realize that what you're learning now is about problem solving more than it is about the particular problem, the problem set you're solving itself. It's about the process of problem solving. It's about the process of teaming and collaborating. It's about the process of building program or development of work. It's about all of those things. And find your partners. Find your partners in crime, your partners who will help you be good. All important work gets done as a team. There's very little that gets done as an individual. I could go on and on. There's so much to say to you guys today, and I really want to, again, recognize the folks in uniform, because it's important to me. If I were to give you any advice, and then I'll turn the floor over, it's important to work hard, and if you think you're working hard now, you probably are relative to your past. The work of the nation and of companies is going to get harder as we go forward into the future. Be ready for that, and be ready to embrace it. So that you don't break every pencil lead pushing so hard. Know when perfect is the enemy of good enough. Not everything has to have an A+. You know, it was once said to me when I was at West Point, if the minimum weren't good enough, it wouldn't be the minimum. So there are times, because we can expend a lot of unnecessary energy when you might apply it elsewhere, trying to be perfect on absolutely everything. That's a hard thing to learn for somebody who's always been the A student, or somebody who's always been in the spotlight. You'll get to a point where that's not possible on everything. It's just part of the human dynamic. As I said before, be open to opportunity. Very important, I think, is one of the most important things I can share. If you're going to lead, you're going to have to break some glass. What that means is, don't be afraid to push the boundaries to the point of discomfort. Management is the maintenance of the status quo. Leadership is disruption to change things for the future. And you just need to know how far to go. Don't break things to the point of getting, a pink slip for being too disruptive. But don't be afraid of discomfort. If somebody's not uncomfortable, nobody's leading. Think about that. And then lastly, it's okay to advocate for yourself. Sometimes you'll be your only advocate. And if you have passion and believe in what you're trying to accomplish, advocate, keep doing it. Somebody will eventually see it. That's all I got for now, and I look forward to questions.
Thank you very much. Excellent. All right, Amy. Oh, thank you. Amy Schumacher.
Yeah.
Here you go. Very
Okay, good.
All right, can you hear me? Here goes nothing. So, I was thinking about, as I drove in last night, being here with all of you, and I have to say, so I was here and graduated from the civil school, and I had Etzel, and I had Lukash, and I had Professor Jacko. I barely have any milestones or landmarks left anymore on this campus. So anyway, as I drove in, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, where am I? Do I have to put my Google Maps on to get me actually here to this group? Let's think. Lance mentioned just sort of how diverse this group is. So I think I'm sort of like the least educated within this alumni base, and honored to be with everybody here. I took a totally different route, so I'll at least kind of share what that journey is with all of you. Maybe I'll start with what I do today and then kind of work you backwards real quick, and because I think the path is always the most interesting thing. So I'm currently CEO of the Heritage Group. We are a large sort of diverse holding company within Indianapolis, Indiana. We operate all around the world. We tend to be focused on heavy highway construction, so anything and everything with building roads throughout the Midwest. Environmental services, as you think about everything from sustainability solutions, like being the largest lithium-ion battery recycler in North America, to hazardous waste remediation and disposal. And then within specialty chemicals, so pharma, electronics, chemicals produced here in the United States and in Europe and sell on a global basis. That's kind of our core. And then we've stood up kind of what we might think of as a set of strategic investments, a venture capital portfolio as an example, an accelerator, sort of spinning out and incubating kind of new businesses, all interrelated to one another. So we're not agnostic on the things that we do. We're always looking for what's the thread we can pull and how do we leverage knowledge and expertise to solve new and unique problems. So how did I find myself into that role? So I grew up in Indianapolis, north side of Indianapolis, was graduating from high school. Back then, I just have to share with you, like, the idea of looking at what even is schools, you went out and you bought this big book from the local bookstore, and each school, Stanford as an example, had its own page, Purdue had its own page, and you read about whatever they wanted you to know about, and like, that's how you got smart. You didn't travel, you didn't go on college visits, you just sort of looked through the book. And I had two grandparents that went to Purdue, so I knew a little bit about Purdue. If I'm being intellectually honest with all of you, I chose Purdue for two reasons. One is I didn't have to write an essay. I filled out my form with my ballpoint pen and sent in my check. I don't remember what it was, maybe $2,500 or something like that, and away I went. And I followed a boy that I ultimately broke up with before I even got to my freshman year. So that is the nature of sometimes when you're 18, how you make really important decisions. I studied environmental engineering while I was here in the civil school. It was a very different realm of environmental engineering, at least, it's wastewater treatment plants and things like that. Have such a large, diverse sort of set of choice points. I came out, I knew, once again, you're gonna not want to have invited me, that I didn't want to be a practicing engineer. That wasn't of interest to me at the time. I was very fortunate that this was the mid-90s. So you can think about what you've probably heard as the first internet boom. And all the kind of large consulting firms were running around, and they didn't have enough computer programmers to do really any of the things that they wanted to do. And so they were going around recruiting engineers, and they were like, well, with the Purdue Foundation, the process orientation and how you solve problems and how you think, like, we could teach you to code, right? And I mean, back then we were coding in like Fortran and C, Anyway, so that's what I did. I just sort of threw myself into kind of an unusual situation. I learned to code. Then I got to travel all around the country working on like really cool sort of, which now seem very rogue, projects like how do you do complex banking transactions online, electronic arts for anybody that plays video games was like one of my largest customers for a long time, but we were trying to figure out how do you play somebody in a foreign country, like what does that look like, or if you want to buy something online, how do you do that? I mean, it's so ridiculously basic. And then I just say that the reality was I was an okay programmer in the sense of it all, but I could walk and chew gum and communicate with clients and communicate with folks of technical nature, and so quickly sort of moved into more of a management role, and went back to business school, so I didn't come back to Cranard at the time. I went to MIT out in the Boston area, and came out of there with a whole set of new skills and capabilities, and still didn't quite know exactly what I wanted to do, and so got involved in, believe it or not, a chemicals business, had a partner, and we went around and sort of built out what now is a specialty chemicals business, and then sort of transitioned myself leadership role to leadership role, and ultimately stepped into the CEO role at Heritage maybe 5-6 years ago. I think if I have one maybe wisdom for all of you, at least as you're sitting here, or I was sitting here, I wish somebody had told me, is that wherever you are right now is not where you're going to end up. Whatever you're thinking you're going to do is most likely not going to be your end destination. Careers are not a straight line. It may look like that from the outside. It may look like that as you sit and listen to some of these folks. You're sitting here, you're Purdue engineers. I'm sure every one of you has the job you want, or the second job, the third job. Like, you are in high demand. There's no shortage of opportunity that's going to present itself to you. And my advice would be, like, don't overthink it. The reality is, like, what you do, an opportunity, to Lance's point, it's going to present itself. You're going to look at it. You'll do some diligence. You'll have a point of view, but just commit. Like, my advice is commit and see. You're only going to actually know once you're in it. And even the things you wish you hadn't done, the things you want to put an X through, are probably where the greatest learning occurs. And so just stay agile, courage, and flexible, and don't work yourself up into any kind of a frenzy. Like, there's very few decisions you can make coming out of here that you can't do something different. You can't fix, you can't tweak, you can't move on. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, wonderful. Okay. Good. Yes, you mentioned communications. You know, we try to do that here now. These students in a few short days will be doing their phase 2 presentations. We go to the Beck Agricultural Center. It's a conference center, and each team then makes a presentation to the rest of the class. And then myself or my 2 TAs. By the way, my 2 TAs, I should introduce them to you as well. In the back is Phil Schumacher. Raise your hand, Phil. Phil is a PE. He's here for his PhD degree. And Juan over here is getting his PhD in structures. He's also a PE. And so I tell our head of the school, I said, I don't have TAs, I have expert advisors. So I've been very blessed to have these folks helping me out in this class. Okay, so next we have with us John Davis. John Davis is the Des Moines, Iowa city engineer and president of the ITE. So we're very, very happy to have John with us, representing the transportation engineering area.
Well, let me clarify just a little bit. I'm the city traffic engineer for Des Moines. The city engineer is who I report to.
Okay.
And I'm the past president of ITE at the international level. But I remember sitting not in this room. We were a little bit smaller over in the what we call the civil building. We didn't have a lot of these named buildings so much.
Yes.
You had the Hovde Hall, Elliott Hall of Music, and then you had a few other named buildings. But as I said, I'm the city traffic engineer for Des Moines, Iowa, and I am in a position where I can make a difference. And that's why I like to do that. I've worked on both the public sector side and the private sector side throughout my career. And the bio that you have is a little outdated because I graduated in '82 from Purdue. And so if you do the quick math, that's a little more than 35 years, more like 40. But I am a 3rd generation Purdue engineer. And Purdue was just going to be where I was going to go, most likely. But how I got into civil was freshman engineering. You had the course, the class that you heard from everybody, from representatives from each of the schools of engineering, and civil just seemed to draw me to it. Maybe if I was really honest, it seemed like it might be the easiest. I wasn't going to be a chemical engineer. That was proved in my first semester. when I got the grade was the initial for my last name. But fortunately, calculus, I got an A. So my father was not too upset with me because they kind of balanced a little bit. But if I look further back, as a young boy, I used to play with railroads, model railroad. And I would create cities. I create roads. I construct in my own fashion with what we had, traffic signs and do pavement markings and signals. And that's what I do in real life. Sometimes I remember being in Chicago and being in the John Hancock building and looking down, and I'd be marveling at the traffic signal progression. And my friends that were with me would say, "Shut up, John. We don't need to hear about how, wow, this is pretty neat, the progression, how the cars are going," because at the time I was a traffic signal engineer for the city of Indianapolis. So I'm able to kind of do what I did as a young boy, but the cars move by themselves now because people are driving them. And the really cool thing about my field, which is transportation and traffic engineering, is that I feel it really epitomizes the field of civil engineering the best. And I mean that because in civil, and a professor that I had, he was a geotech, Professor Alshafel, he mentioned that civil is the second oldest engineering discipline. Military is the oldest, and then once the military, the Romans conquered everybody, they had to build stuff and was more the civil. But in civil, you have the people. The person, the human being is integral to the system. You're really impacted, much more than some of the other disciplines. And in traffic engineering, for the most part still, we don't have autonomous vehicles. They're looking forward to it. But the person is integral to the system that you're trying to design to, or fix, or operate, or maintain. So in my responsibilities as a traffic engineer, I'm responsible for the transportation planning, overseeing conceptual designs of roadways when we tear them up in Des Moines. For storm water management purposes, we're putting back on the surface something different. So we look at that and figure out, well, what do we need? We don't need 4 lanes. We don't want 4-lane undivided roadways because that's where most of our fatalities are occurring. So we put in 3-lane roads with 2-way left turn lanes. Road diets, as some people call them. Some people also call them road reallocations because road diet is a bad term in some communities. But we also add bike lanes, active transportation to get people out there. So from my perspective, I'm able to really help people in terms of their mobility, which leads to improved health and impact and safety. And that's why it's important for me to be a traffic engineer. Now, I've been active in the Institute of Transportation Engineers since I was a student at Purdue. I joined as a senior. Professor John Fricker, who has since passed, was the faculty advisor at that time. He passed out the applications, and I figured I'm graduating hopefully in May. This is in the fall. I probably should look for getting a job. This might be a way that I can find a company that would hire me. And after numerous ding letters, I don't know what they call them now, maybe they're ding emails. But these were letters, rejection letters. You'd send out a letter and somebody would say, well, no, we really don't want to talk to you. Or we do want to talk to you, but you're not really interested in you, type of thing. I did get a job with the city of Indianapolis. Worked there for several years, and then worked down in Florida as a county traffic engineer in Lee County, Florida, which is the Fort Myers Beach, Cape Coral area of Florida. And then I moved to Wisconsin and worked for private companies. But throughout that, ITE I've been involved with, and most of my jobs have transitioned because of somebody or a connection with ITE. Sometimes it's not who I knew, but who the person that I was interviewing with knew through ITE. That's how I got the job in Florida. Gentleman who was hiring down there knew the individual that I had worked for with the city of Indianapolis because of the professional association connection. And so what I would leave with you real briefly is get involved in a professional association and make sure that your future employer supports you. If they aren't, and you should ask them this, are they going to support you in your professional career development, including active membership at some level with a professional association? And if they're not, quite frankly, I'd give it a second thought whether I go with that employer or not. Because your association involvement will not only provide technical knowledge, it will also provide networking, knowing people that can lead to other careers. But more importantly, it will provide you an opportunity to exercise leadership. This course is great because you're working in project teams. You're learning about leadership. But when you are out in the real world and you have a bottom line to adhere to, you want to have your leadership skills a little bit more fine-tuned. And a professional association or any volunteer group outside of your profession can provide those opportunities to fine-tune, learn those leadership skills without the CEO or the CFO or your boss coming down and saying, okay, your project is now way over budget. So you don't have to worry about the bottom line so much. But the skills are very transferable, because if you can lead somebody in a nonprofit, volunteer fashion without the carrot and stick of a paycheck, then you can do it in almost any other situation. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. John's message is very important. The affiliation with a professional group like ASCE or ITE or many, many others that are available to us. Networking is so critical. I wouldn't be here at Purdue. I've been here many years, but I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for a person I happen to run into. A very simple encounter years ago that led me to Purdue. So you never know when you're going to meet that person that will become an integral part of your future. So next we have on the agenda, we have Professor David Frost from Georgia Tech University. David, here you go. Okay. Yep. Good.
All right. All right. Well, good morning. Never a good place to be at the last one because they've already said all the smart things and the intelligent things. So I decided that since we're here in the chemical engineering building, that I would give a little talk about PTFE. Now, how many of you know what PTFE is? Good Lord, that's why you're civil engineers, because you obviously didn't like chemistry. PTFE is polytetrafluoroethylene, or more commonly, Teflon. The reason that's the end of the chemistry part, by the way. I'm actually going to talk about P, which is plans. I'm going to talk about T. I'm going to talk about F, and I'm going to talk about E. T is teams, F is forensics, and E is entrepreneurship. And all these things tie, I think, into what many of you are already doing, but also then more importantly, what may be some seeds for where you want to go in the future. My connection with CE 498 was actually not in one of the many seats here, but I think in his seat and in one of the others. I was in the same position. I came here after working for about 3 or 4 years. I had a PEng from Canada, and so I was picked to be one of the TAs for the class because they thought I might know something about real world problems. Listening to some of the earlier discussions, even on our meeting this morning, many things have sort of remained the same about CE 498, which is a great class. Perhaps the biggest thing is that the size of the class and the size of the teams. When I was doing it, I think there was maybe a dozen teams and they were about 5 or 6 person teams, and you're now certainly more teams and much bigger teams as well. So let me come back to my PTFE. So plans. When I was growing up in an even more remote town than Luck, Wisconsin, I grew up in Enniskeane, County Cork, the Republic of Ireland. If you told me that I would be not only here today, but any of the places that I've been on the path that got me here, I would have told you, what are you drinking, what are you smoking, or whatever. The truth is, I always did have a plan, but I think the most important thing about a plan is that you're willing to change it, because you don't know what's coming around the corner, and as soon as something else comes, you need to go through an exercise and you say, is the path I'm on the best one, or should I look at some alternative and so on? And so continuously in my career, I've certainly had a plan, but it has changed so many times because greater opportunities than what you even perceived initially emerge. And so my path, without getting into gory details, took me from that rural part of the south of Ireland to college in Dublin. Then there was nothing happening in Ireland, so I emigrated to Canada without a job, got a job 2 days later. And during that time up there, I had fascinating opportunity to work. I've spent about 1.5 years of my life north of the Arctic Circle building artificial sand islands. Hardly something that most people in southern Ireland think about doing. Then I decided I want to go to grad school, and I applied to 2 grad schools. Stanford's going to get picked on today because the 2 I applied to were Stanford and Purdue. And the letter I got back from Stanford said, oh, we'd love to have you in our soil science program, which is not what I was looking for. I was looking for soil mechanics. And on the contrary, a name that's come up multiple times today, Arnold Schäfel, was one of 3 different faculty members who sent me letters, because that was in the day of the snail mail, sent me letters saying, we'd love to have you come to Purdue. And that was basically done deal, and I came here, and then the rest is history. After that, I joined the faculty here at Purdue, and I thought I was quite happy here, but an opportunity came up to move to Georgia Tech, and that's where I've then subsequently been for geographically. But trust me, since then I have traveled all over the world because of my job and because of the opportunities. And have I planned them all? No, I haven't. And I'll come back to that travel a little bit in a minute. So that's the P part of it. The T part of it, which I think is something incredibly important, is teams. You are now on a team of 13 people. There'll be other times in your life where you're on a team of 2 people. Maybe it'll just be you and your spouse. That's a team. And dynamics that you need to think about in making that a successful team, they may be different than what you're currently going through in senior design, but it's still thinking about teams. You'll also be somewhere in your career probably on a team. You may be the leader of a group, whether it's a research group, whether it's a division within a company, or you may be in a much larger. Maybe one of you out there is going to be a president of the United States in the future, and that'll be a very big team that you're leading. Irrespective of all of that, I don't care what the size of the team is, but keep one thing in mind. When you're on a team, the team doesn't work for you. You work with people. And as long as you keep that in mind, you will be successful. The team success is your success, and not you trying to be the all demanding or all overarching thing. You do everything you can to work with it. By the way, just as a matter of shout out, could everyone in row F stand up for a second? It'll only take about a second. Come on, don't be afraid. Nothing's going to happen. Because you happened to pick row F this morning, you're Team Frost. Okay, F as in Frost. Thank you. Delighted to meet you all. Hopefully I see some of you again later. That's it, you're done. So, teams. Just remember teams, very important. It's the next one, F, forensics. You got to spend a lot of time being here in all of your classes being told how to build things, how to design things. But one of the wonderful things about your project this semester is that you're investigating a failure. And the way we do that is forensics. And a lot of times people don't realize this, but Just as you have design procedures, you should have failure investigation procedures. Otherwise, you can actually likely prove anything caused the failure if you are not thorough and following a rigorous and robust method. Fortunately for all of you here at Georgia Tech, one of the best methods, at Purdue. Gosh,
Yeah,
that's terrible.
thank you.
By the way, he called it Georgia Tech University, so I get a little leeway. One of the absolute most seminal pieces of work on investigation of failures was done by Professor Jerry Leonards, who was one of my mentors here at Purdue. And he proposed a methodology for investigating failures. And I still use that in my classes today to teach people. So don't think about, forensics just as like CSI and, that all happens very, very quickly on the TV. That's not really how it happens. There's a lot of very careful and thoughtful work goes in there. The reason I emphasize forensics, though, is that because, if anything, I have spent much more of my life investigating failures than I have actually designing failures for other people to investigate. And unfortunately, mine don't fail because I'm not designing them. But that opportunity to pursue and examine failures has taken me all over the world. And I chase disasters, hurricanes, landslides, earthquakes, debris flows, tsunami, but also man-made disasters. I had have the opportunity to be at Ground Zero after 9/11. I was in Surfside, Florida after the Champlain Towers collapse a few years ago and everywhere. And each of those experiences are wonderful because, in the end, nothing beats the full-scale experiment and trying to understand what happens. And in particular, I focus on perishable data because there's some data may disappear quickly for one reason or another. And so trying to get there quickly after these events is important. 2 weeks ago, I teach a class on international disaster reconnaissance. And for spring break, I actually take the class to somewhere where I've been maybe a number of times after a disaster. This year, I happened to go to Sikkim in North India, where there was a glacial lake outflow in October of 23. I went there within about a week after it. And this time, I took all the students in the class. Now, apart from a very nice spring break, because we have an endowment that covers all their travel, but it's such a learning experience for them because they not only have to think about the engineering, they have to think about the culture, and they have to think about how that disaster affects that society versus everything else. You're living in a global world, and if you think you can just transplant the American solution somewhere else, that's not going to happen. You have to become culturally aware about how things happen and so on in other countries. So forensics is important. And finally, the last thing I want to tell you is that entrepreneurship is something that is emerging even within civil engineering now. And don't be afraid of it. Embrace it. If you have ideas, think about filing invention disclosures. If they're good ideas and you continue to work a little bit on it, you can file provisional patents, you can file utility patents. And if you get a good enough idea and you have a patent, somebody will license it from you. You don't have to necessarily be the one that creates the company to start it, although you can do that. But so think about that as part of your path going forward. Now, something that I've had the opportunity myself to be involved in a couple of startup software companies. I've already sold out of one. The current one that I'm involved with is doing photographic assets and tied in with Google Earth and AI and lots of fun things. It's very exciting. But, and that's my nighttime job. I still have my day job as a faculty member. But think about those opportunities. You're now a generation that in fact is looking for more of these opportunities. Don't think that as civil engineers you just have to give all the great ideas away. It's not happening in mechanical, it's not happening in electrical. They're patenting things, they're looking for opportunities to advance their careers as well. So add that to your portfolio of things that I think you can be able to do out of here. And with that, and without realizing it, you've now had a chemistry lesson on Teflon, and I'm happy to join in the questioning in a minute.
Okay, very good. Very nice. Okay, very good. You've probably noticed that we are missing one of our honorees this morning. But it's very interesting. We're giving you the fundamentals of problem solving, maybe forensic examination, designing bridges and so on. And the person who is not here, who will join us about 11 o'clock, okay, Mark Wagner, he's a physician. And he is, as of yesterday, he was performing heart transplant surgery. And so he will be with us later this morning. But that's a testament to the fact that even though we're civil engineers, we can do other things. And he has excelled in that other area. So it's amazing that he did a heart transplant yesterday. He will be with us today at 11 o'clock and be with us this evening for the celebration in the North Ballroom. So with that, we have time for maybe for a question or two of our guests this morning. Do we have some questions? Let's have a question. Who's going to be the first one? Name and team. Who would like to ask a question of our folks here this morning?
C6.
Here we go. Very good.
I'm Anthony Fuchsia on Team 9. You mentioned working in international teams. I'm wondering, as an international student and someone not native to the U.S., what has it been like seeing the difference in how we're doing from mostly domestic to mostly international teams, and how does that change?
So the question has to do with international teams and how does that work? And you're an international student, so you're curious, right?
Well, he was, I'm not.
Yeah, okay, here we go, David. Yeah, right.
So a lot of times the initial learning when you're with international people doesn't happen around a book or around a computer. It happens maybe at a coffee table with a nice espresso, and you sit and you chat and you get to learn about each other. At Georgia Tech right now, I have a research group that has 12 PhDs, about 4 masters, and intentionally it is a globally distributed group. I actually hate to have too many students from one country, not because they're not necessarily good, but because I want to create that type of environment for them. But the key to it all is a very high-end Italian espresso maker that I bought, and the deal I struck with the students is I buy the machine, you buy the coffee. Now, Starbucks is not very happy with us because they're absolutely all saving about $50 a week, not going to Starbucks, but they're actually having better coffee in the lab. But more importantly, they sit, and anytime, and I go there myself 3 or 4 times a day, and have coffee with them. So that, I think, is much more important. It's that communication and getting to know the person at a deeper level. You can always then get back together at the computer and, Laplace's equation is still Laplace's equation no matter where you came from or whatever. But it's that greater understanding of the persons that I think is critically important. And so when you set up a team, think about the makeup of the team to be successful for that.
Okay, very good. Okay, very good. One last question, perhaps? Okay. All right, seeing no hands, let's give these folks a big round of applause.